Every lunchtime, myself and 8, 9, 10 of my colleagues go into a small, windowless room in the middle of our office building, and we engage in battle. We are the knights of King Arthur. We are the minions of Mordred. We're spies. We're the resistance. We're sheriffs. We're vice deputies. We're outlaws, and we're renegades. We're the mafia, or the civilians. We're werewolves or we're villagers. We pit ourselves against each other in the name of fun. Now, I'm sure most, if not everyone in this room, is familiar with the concept of team-building exercises, of being assembled as a group from your company, being loaded onto a bus, driven into the middle of the countryside, placed in a field with a fairly high-paid consultant, being given a couple of barrels and a plank, being shown some ropes a distance apart on the grass, having it pointed out that that is a lava flow, and you as a team must use these barrels and planks to get across that lava flow without touching that burning, dangerous grass lava. Or perhaps you've experienced trying to throw an egg out of a window and not having it break, just with paper and straws and rubber bands. Now, what these things do is they bring us together, they put us in the face of adversity, and as a group, they make a team. You're told up front, you'll become a team. You know it's a team-building exercise, and you're there and you're enjoying it, and you're having fun because you're away from your desk. You're out of the office. You're being paid to be in the middle of the fresh air. Isn't that fun? It's costly. It's the cost of the consultant. It's the cost of taking people out of work that whole time. But it gets the job done and teaches those lessons. But what about the people who don't enjoy that? What about a group of people who are introverts, not extroverts? The ones who see organized fun and go, that's not for me. Now, I'm an engineer. I'm a software engineer. And to make a sweeping generalization, I come from a tribe of introverts, which is kind of odd, me stood in front of 100 people saying, I'm an introvert, hello. But here I am. I have to force myself to be up here. But we're highly analytical. We are therefore highly aware, but we're highly cynical as a result. We're most likely to say, organized fun? No thanks. I want to get back to my computer. I want to get my head down, because we love our work. We don't want to take ourselves out of our comfort zone. We don't want to be stood in that field, coming together. Just to give you a taste of what it's like sometimes to be an introvert in the face of this, I'd like you to put your hands up if you don't enjoy audience participation. 1 or 2. But how can we take those lessons from team building exercises and teach them to our software teams? How can we take those introverts and perhaps give them the same lessons without paying all that money and without putting this artificial situation in front of them? Well, perhaps we can look at social engineering. Perhaps we can change the environment, but not tell them what they're going to learn. Perhaps we can put them into a situation where the lesson is learned by participating and not by being grabbed by the t-shirt and shaken and told, you and you and you and you will become a team by the end of this day in a field. I go back to the fights, I guess, the battles that I have with my colleagues every lunchtime. We play games that are generally called hidden identity games. Take Avalon, for example. You have 2 teams. You have the Knights of King Arthur, and you have the Minions of Mordred. And there's a deck of cards, and each card has one role or the other. There's a larger number of knights and a smaller number of spies, or Minions of Mordred, but they're dealt randomly. They're given to individuals who don't share them with others. And what you see in these hidden identity games is one group of those people is larger. More knights, fewer minions. But they have no clue what's going on. They have no idea who their teammates are. They don't know who the enemy is. They don't know who their friends are. You have the other team, smaller, but they have the advantage of knowledge. Through a mechanism of closing eyes and putting thumbs up, the spies, those minions, those bad guys, find out who's on their team. And as a result, they have that advantage to try to overcome and deceive the other team. And this is just another form of that adversity. This is just another form of those lava flows. But you don't have that lesson, perhaps, that lesson that you're going to become a team. I'm sure a number of you are also familiar with Bruce Tuckman's model of engaging teams. It's called the forming, norming, storming, and performing. You find out who everyone is. You find out that you can work together. You argue with them. You find out that you can work together with them again. You argue with them again. You go through cycles of norming and storming. And finally, and hopefully and mythically perhaps, you end up performing. You understand each other. You come together as a team and you achieve those goals. Well, these hidden identity games, I've come to realize, represent that in microcosm. In 20 minutes of play, which is how long it takes to play some of these games, you form a team. You figure out who's playing. You have your fights, your rows. You find out who's playing. You have your fights, your rows, and so on. And eventually, one of the two teams becomes the winner. And the fact is, because it takes 20 minutes, in a lunch hour, you can fit 2 or 3 games in. No longer are you being carted out into the middle of a field once a year to be taught how to be a team, but you can practice every single lunchtime. Forming, the first stage of that process. Hidden identity games, you have no idea who you are. You have no idea who your teammates are. It's a blank slate. Yes, you know that Dave from just down the row of desks from you might be a little shouty. You know that Charlotte might withdraw a little. You might have that implicit understanding of how they behave in the workplace, but here this is a blank slate. You have no idea what they're going to be or what they're going to do. You don't know what their motivations are. Also, because those roles are handed out as part of a randomized card, you can actually have people from high in the hierarchy, the CEO, the CFO, come down and experience this egalitarian situation where everyone is reduced to either a knight or a minion. You can find people from other departments join in. Those ones who perhaps enjoy a game, but not necessarily go out into the cold, or enjoy both. And so someone I might not have reason to talk to because I'm in engineering and I'm coding all the time, might be there every lunchtime, and I might make friends across departments. After that, we get to the norming phase. In Avalon, you have a leadership system where it goes around. The leader proposes a team to try and take on a mission. Everyone votes. And if the vote passes, you take this mission on. If it doesn't, it goes to the next person for leadership. So everyone kind of gets their bite of the cherry of leading this. And through these votes, and through observing these logical actions, and without the preconceptions of who your team were at the start, from that blank slate, you start to learn to trust people based on their actions and not on your preconceived ideas. You start to learn to trust other people based on the trust that's been placed in them by someone you trust. Chains of trust, authenticity. And you start to see how people can contribute to your own personal advantage. You see how that team starts to come together and figures out slowly, without those stereotypes, exactly who's who. And then, inevitably, you've placed your trust in someone, and they've deceived you. The storming happens, the shouting, the recriminations, all of these backlashes that you might see in general office, day-to-day life, happen in this small environment, this casual environment, this separate environment, and a safe environment. What happens in that game room? It's part of the game. This might be part of inhabiting your character, perhaps. You can learn to separate the personal from the professional by looking at someone's actions rather than looking at how they've shouted at you in that room. You can start to understand how to trust them outside of the game room. You see natural leaders appear during this phase. You see people who make peace with others. And if you are one of those leaders, you start to learn how to engender trust from others. You can start to speak up. One of the people who's now a line manager at the company I work at, before he was, it was very evident from these games that everyone looked up to him, that everyone respected him, and that he could put the logical arguments together, whether deceptive or not, to lead people on. He is now a line manager. We're able to identify our leaders through this role-playing by the back door that only costs the £15 of this game set. So you've been through this norming phase, you've been through the storming, you've gone through the cycle a few times, and by the end, it's time for someone to win. You learn how to perform. And yes, that is my chin. You discover how to get shared success. You discover a shared understanding of the game as a team. You discover how to work together. You can learn how to become self-sacrificial. Now, some of this deception, some of these games, some of these roles, it might not necessarily be, at first glance, the most appropriate thing for the workplace. After all, if you built trust in someone, if you trust someone and they deceive you, what's your reaction? It's pretty negative. It can be destructive. But perhaps if you take the view that the game is the game and what happens there stays in that room, you might find that you learn to rebuild trust in others. You'll find that if that trust has been deceived, has been broken, how can you view their actions to learn to trust them again? Or, if the trust in you has been broken, how do you take action to get that trust building again? It gives you an environment, a safe environment, in which you can fail and in which you can identify bad actors and bad agents. And it teaches you those lessons just in that little space of time to actually help you in your day-to-day life. So with this negativity and with these pieces of adversity that we throw at our engineers, at our introverts, with all these conditions and setting them there, putting them in that confrontational but casual and throwaway environment for the cost of 20, 30 pounds for one of these game sets, or in the example of Mafia, free, you can gain in those people, in those introverts, you can gain those lessons of those team building exercises. But I guess there's one other thing. Having picked this apart, having thrown a model on top, having justified why I'm up here, there's one other thing that maybe I haven't mentioned so far. It's fun. Because as the team that plays together stays together. Thank you very much.